Hi, I'm Tiffany Helm on the Keith Andrew Network. I have been invited here to chat about this and that. Super happy to be here and think what he is doing is great. I hope many more interviews like this can happen.
The whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, so prove them and still amount to something. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith Andrew, and you're watching the Keith Andrew Network. It is 1088. The year was born, 1988. 1000. None, I wasn't born in the year 1000. That would be pretty interesting. But we did 1088 episodes. I'm here with a great guest. You may recognize her because you heard the recommendation before we got started. So, as I was saying, you heard from the recommendation. She was in a couple horror movies. She was also in 21 Jump Street. So we're going to ask some questions from your IMDb in a couple of seconds. But the first thing we're going to talk about is icebreakers. So the first question I want to ask you is tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, hi Keith, and proud to be, what'd you say, 1088?
Yes.
That's my number. That's a good number. I like the eights in there. They're always good luck. Um, my name's Tiffany, and I've been in the acting industry since 1982. So I've had a long run. It wasn't consistent after like late 90s, early thousands. I ended up taking what amounted to a 22-year break. Um, got into photography. I moved a couple times. I had left Los Angeles. It was the year Kurt Cobain died, actually. Moved to Seattle. Became a portrait photographer the next few years and did a few things in Seattle, production wise, TV, and I did a video game out there, like a live action video game thing. And in 2011, I was able to reclaim my Canadian citizenship, and our family moved to Canada. And a couple of years into that, I decided to jump back into acting and get an agent. So I've done a few Canadian productions, and here I am. And I'm back in it completely and studying and doing everything I can to get back in it.
No, I agree. And there's two things I want to mention real fast. I noticed we're both wearing headphones. For me, I have a mic piece, but the last episode I had, I sounded like the guy on the opposite end of, working at McDonald's. So I turned that off. So I hear you for the headphones, but I'm using the mic on my Apple computer.
Okay.
Because
Because this is my mic's here.
no, no, you sound fine. I'm just telling you what I do. Because the
Okay.
last time I did an interview, yeah, I interviewed a kid actor. He was just starting out. And he's like, okay, I interviewed everyone. But he sounded fine, but I was like, oh, tell me about I was freaking cringing when I was editing it. And he sounded fine. Like, you pull up to the next window. I'm like, yeah, it's if we want to look like amateur hour, it was really bad. So that's why I used the mic from the computer. But that's just me giving my 2 cents. But you mentioned you're from Canada, and I love Canada. I always wanted to move there. What
Not
do
from
people?
Canada. Not, no, I was born in LA, but I came
Oh,
back to
nice
Canada. So,
correction. But I always wanted to move to Canada. But a lot of people from Canada tell me don't move there. But what do people you know, say Canada's the home. Well, I like to say the home of Brett the Hitman Hart, down the Hart family, Trish Stratus. Canadians are the sweetest people. When you visit Canada, is that true or is that a stereotype?
No, there's a difference between, I think that the correct term that Canadians are known for are being polite. Now, but there's a difference between polite and kind. And I can tell you from personal experience in living in both countries that it differs from province to province. And without going too far into detail, I don't want to bash any provinces, but some of the nastiest people I have ever met in my life. And again, I'm from Los Angeles, so I've met more than a handful of
Yeah.
unpleasant folks. But some of the nastiest people I've ever met in my life have been in Canada. So again, the polite thing is very different than the kind thing. There are also some wonderful people here, just like in the States, right? Um, my takeaway is that people are people wherever you go. There's some cultural differences, I think. Um, but like the English influence here definitely makes for some of the cultural differences.
No,
Um,
no, you're right. And there's some New Yorkers that are just assholes.
yeah, well, yeah, there's some Californians, there's some French people, there's Germans. I really think it's just people are people, but the cultural differences sometimes bring out certain traits of people. But the idea of Canada being like this nation of really nice people is not true. Just because we say sorry a lot, it doesn't make you kind, right? That's a polite thing. That's we can say like, oh, excuse me and thank you and pardon me, but that's not kindness. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, it's funny
That's
you should mention that. I used to work at Walmart, and I think it was during the holidays, or it was it wasn't Black Friday. I think it was through the holidays. And this woman was in front of me, and I had to get to the front of the line because I was going to be on the cashier or trying to figure out what register I was going to use. So I said, "Excuse me, I ain't moving." And so I said, I didn't say it to her. I said to myself, fine, you're going to move one way or I'm going to make you move. So I grabbed her wagon and I pushed it to the side. And she's like, the hell? Oh, you work here. It's like, what? I said, excuse me, like two times to her. And her response was, I ain't moving for nobody. So I said, fine, I can be nasty too. You're going to move one way or I'm going to make you move.
Yeah, that's all that people need who work there is more grief from customers, right?
But it's funny because everyone who came on my line when I was working at Walmart said, I'm going to be on your line. And the reason I chose your register is because you're standing here and you have a smile on your face and you seem happy to be here. And it was true. And I said, the truth is, while I'm smiling, I'm thinking a lot of sarcastic remarks I'm going to make. And the thing is about working in retail is you need stories. And in the entertainment world, you have to, and you should know, you have the first 10 seconds to make an impression on somebody. So it doesn't matter if you're having a crappy day or if you hate this job, you never know who you're going to meet. So it's always good to say, hi, how are you? And just be professional because you never know 5, 10 years later, or maybe if you left a job, you're going to meet the same person and you made a good impression of them. Then they're like, okay, I remember that you were professional. I like to work with you. If you're going to be one of those idiots that you walk around with their thumbs up their ass, and then that's going to be like, well, you're burning bridges, and that's going to come back for you. It's karma. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I mean, it's funny you said that because if you said you looked on my IMDb page and I remember when I had a friend kind of start that for me years ago, but wanted me to have some quote. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, it's on the IMDb page of be nice. You never know what you're going to be remembered for. And I find that very true. I mean, I believe in being authentic too. I mean, if you're troubled or having a really bad day, I don't think it's really healthy to be like, yeah, it's all good. I'm good. I'm fine. Yay. But you also don't know, whatever the impression is, you can turn around somebody else's day who's having a bad day by your demeanor and actions. Yeah, kindness costs nothing. Sometimes, I mean, we're all human, so we all have our limits and we all have our boundaries. But, for the most part, kindness costs nothing.
No, you're absolutely right. So the first question I want to talk to you about, you are some of these names I'm gonna for not mention, and I'm not gonna say that because I sound like an asshole. It's part of my learning disability is I have a hard time pronouncing names. That's why in the beginning when people watch the episode, the guest introduces themselves. So in the past when I did the interview, I'm like, I say the name and then they correct me. So I'm like, you know what? I make it easier. Here's a video. The guests introducing themselves. I'm just going to focus on the interview instead of looking like I'm an illiterate, but I can't read and write. That's a different story. But the first question I want to talk to you about, you are known for being in Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. What can you tell us about that? And that came out in 1985.
Well, yeah, that role of Violet is what I am most known for. And I always joke about it because my resume includes a lot of very impressive names. And I'm like, wait a minute, don't you guys want to know about, when I worked with Robert Altman or Johnny Depp or Brad Pitt or John Cryer? Or like, don't you guys want to know any of that? They're like, no, 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 we want to know Friday the 13th. So again, it goes back to that, be nice. You never know what you can be remembered for. And there's the resurgence, which has been going on for a while now. We have these conventions, these horror conventions and such, and they are packed with fans who just adore these old movies. Also the new ones as well. I mean, the conventions span everything from 80s even prior to current. Now you also have a lot of A-list actors doing the conventions because there's such a thing. But it started out as just kind of this anomaly and just kind of a few horror fans who wanted to meet their idols and the people that they really liked, and talk about the films that they really liked. So Violet, yeah, I mean, if you Google my name, it just comes up with a ton of Friday the 13th stuff. So it was when I was cast in it, originally the part went out for this kind of Pat Benatar part because it's back then. This is way before your time, but when she did the Unless You're an 80s aficionado.
I am. I love the
um,
80s.
Okay, well then Pat Benatar, Love is a Battlefield was out,
Great
and that
song.
video, okay. So that's how the part was written. This kind of like hard body, and Hollywood had no idea what the underground alternative scene looked like. So they just went with the Pat Benatar look, which was not at all punk or new wave or alternative or any of that. It was just her, I don't know what it was. um, Absolutely respect her as an artist, but that was not what the punk alternative scene and gothic scene was about. So I went in and I was not a little hard body type. I had a few extra pounds on me, and I had, uh, wasn't doing tattoos. Nobody was doing tattoos at the time, or the piercings, right? But the different colored hair, my agent was freaking out, like, don't do that. Um, and they loved me. The part was changed. So and again, for anybody who's getting into the business, um, breakdowns, sometimes they're very, very specific and they absolutely want 100% of what they wrote. But a lot of times you can change their mind. Um, and that has happened to me more than once where the role has been written a certain way and I'm nothing like it. And they're like, oh, okay, well, let's give this a shot. So I got hired for that, and the working title was The Repetition. So nobody knew that it was a Friday the 13th film. And after we were hired under favored nations, which means that everybody gets paid the same. There's no super high salaries. um, after we were hired, then we found out it was a Friday the 13th film. So, and yeah, had a blast on it. And because of conventions, I'm still in touch with a lot of my co-stars. So win-win. And fans. I have so many fan friends from that film. And people that I met in person. And yeah, it's really been it's an interesting phenomenon, the whole subculture horror thing.
I would love to talk to you off the air. I would love to work with you. And he just gave me a couple of ideas as well. But the next one, a lot of people are going to ask me, well, why didn't I ask? But two more questions and we can go to the next film. What was it like working with, I'm going to butcher his name. I just say Freddy. Did you get the chance to work with Freddy? And did you, I know it sounds like an oxymoron. Why don't you say his real name? I can't pronounce his real name. But did you work with the guy who did Freddy Krueger? And do you have any funny moments that you worked or remembered from being on Friday the 13th?
Well, Friday the 13th was Jason.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And that, no, that's okay. Like I said, hang on a second. I'm just trying to get some information
Yes,
here.
Nightmare on Elm Street. It's Friday. Friday the 13th was Jason. I got
Right.
those two confused.
Totally okay. And interesting that you said that because my mom did 3 and 4 of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Oh,
So
nice.
she worked with Robert Englund. I didn't work with Robert, but I did, not directly, but I did do one of his, the episodes of his series, the Freddy's Nightmares series. So, and he does kind of an appearance on all of the episodes, but we didn't work directly. I did, however, work directly with the doll, the baby that they used as like the baby Freddy in one of his films. Um, so yeah, I didn't work with him directly. I have met him, because my mother and I sometimes share conventions or I visited her at conventions. So that's kind of my run-in with Robert. But as far as
Jason.
Jason,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean the thing about the part 5 that I did, and it's a source of contention for a lot of the horror fans, is it wasn't the real Jason that was doing the killings. It was kind of like it's the who done it of the Friday the
Yeah.
13th. So, and some people get really upset by that. Seriously, it is a source of contention for a lot of horror fans. Um, but while we were working, we had um, both, the actor playing the killer, and we had the actor playing who was different than the guy in the Tom Morga, the stuntman who was in the Jason getup, right? So I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, it did. I'm
okay.
gonna read off some of the stuff that you did. You were in the OC and the Sting, I believe it is. That's how you pronounce it.
OC and Sticks. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Pardon my disability.
Well, I mean and that's what I wanted to ask you because I can if you mispronounce something, I don't really care. I mean, do you want me to fire back
No, go
a
ahead, be
correct?
yourself.
Well, I know, but I don't, I want to treat
You don't want
everybody
to
with
come off like an
respect.
asshole. But
Yeah, exactly. Or I'd not even come off as, but just be one, be tone deaf. I don't want to be that. So
no, you
should
can.
should I
It's
be correcting you or not? What is more comfortable for you?
I really don't care. As long
Okay.
as you're enjoying yourself, that's all that matters. And I don't mean any disrespect. Yeah, it's part of my disabilities that I mispronounce things. But hey, that's the hint of the show. Not, but so I really don't care. But you are also on You Again, and that
Hmm.
was 1986. You are on 21 Jump Street. I do want to talk to you about that. You were there for one ep. It says you were there for one episode, but did they ask you to come back, or was it just like a guest appearance?
It was a guest star. Yeah, it was. Yeah. And um, that was one of Brad Pitt's earlier shows that he did. So I got to
What
work with him and Johnny. So pretty cool.
Absolutely. What was it like being on the show? I know you were there just for one episode, but what was that experience like being on for one episode?
It was awesome. It was, they flew us to Vancouver, and how long was I there for? I want to say it was like 10 days or something. Um, but yeah, the cast and crew was amazing, and I met one of my best friends there, Cheryl Pollock. When we were done with that, we continued to be like besties. I spoke with her actually just a couple of weeks ago. Um, so it was really, really fun. Johnny was super cool. Brad was really super cool. Like everybody on the show was great. Director was great. It was, it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, it doesn't get better than this as far as just and getting paid to do this work. So it was, yeah, it was probably one of my most favorite jobs to work on.
And you were,
It's
oh, go
surreal.
ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, and just it's just surreal and how much fun it was.
You also did in 1989 Freddy's Nightmare. What can you tell us about? I never heard of that. Now I have to look it up. So what's it like on a horror network or
No, that was on prime time. I can't remember what network put that out, but that was the one that I mentioned where it's Freddy. So it's Robert Englund who hosts it. Um, and there are just these different scenarios, kind of like Creep Show, like Stephen King's Creep Show. So and I was this very pregnant waitress who ends up giving birth to like that Freddy baby. So it's pretty horrific and kind of funny. They're all kind of tongue in cheek, right? They're kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street, where there's a lot of humor to it. Like Robert Englund is funny. He's a funny guy, and the Freddy character, as nasty as he is, he has all these like zingers, these just
eh,
funny lines, right? So it kind of carries on with that. It's a great show, and I think it has also experienced a bit of a resurgence in popularity. I don't know who is streaming it now, but I've had some people mention that they've been watching it.
yeah, one of my favorite lines, and occasionally my sister would bring it up, and my brother says, "Remember the time Freddy was? I think he killed someone with a Nintendo Power Glove, and he said, now I'm playing with power."
Okay, exactly. Exactly. He's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of the like evil horror villains, right? With those little one-liners.
You brought up a good point. Now, did you see the Super Bowl, or did you just watch the commercials?
My husband was watching the Super Bowl, so I was in there. I was more interested in the playoffs because he's a big Lions fan. So he kind of got me sucked into that. I'm not a football person. But I'll watch sometimes because he's watching it.
I'm the same way. I spend time with my dad and my brother when they watch it, but I really don't care. I like the names, the Panthers. I like cats. I like the Eagles because I like birds.
Okay.
Some birds can be assholes, but I like the Eagles. But it's funny. I was wearing a Carolina Panther shirt. Someone's like, "Oh, you like the team? Who's your favorite player?" I don't know. Why are you wearing the shirt? I like Panthers. But one of my favorite commercials is you mentioned also Schwarzenegger, like a good
Oh my
neighbor.
God, yes, his that is the best. That was so funny. I didn't see it like a lot of those commercials we wouldn't get in Canada. And even my husband was like, I even turned on a US broadcasting channel so that you could see all the US because it's they'll put in like Canadian commercials and we don't
Yeah,
get all the really great Super Bowl ads. So I saw that like the next couple of days. I'm like, oh my God, that is hilarious. You gotta love Arnold. Whatever his shtick is, his acting abilities or whatever, like he's funny and he doesn't take himself too seriously and he's just got a great screen presence.
yeah, and then the next line in there was like, everything was like ba. She's in way ba, and there's
Yeah,
the
right.
sheep. The sheep goes ba. It's like that wasn't me.
Yeah,
The
that's a hilarious commercial.
the other one I actually like is one was Christopher Walken. Did you see that one?
Wait, was that which one was it? Because I know he's done a few in a row. Which one did he do this year?
He did this year where everyone, like he's in a restaurant, he was a car attendant. Everyone in the commercial was
Oh,
doing
yeah,
the
yeah,
best.
yeah. They're
Re-
imitating him. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a good one too. And my mom, speaking of Christopher Walken, aka Ronnie Walken, she worked with him on Broadway many years ago. So, and that's somebody, if you're interested in, you'll have to look up my mom and see maybe you want to interview her too, and I can connect you. She always loves to do interviews, but she's like a big deal. She's done, I don't know, like 500 TV and movies. Like she's the
If you
real
can help me
deal.
out, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Make her number 1089, or I'm sure you've got a whole bunch of interviews lined up.
Well, working on it, but I can always use the help. But
Yeah.
I do have a question for you. I want you to be brutally honest. I'm going to be truthful. You don't have to pull any punches. I like doing it, but even though there's people that do it better than me. But when I first approached you to be a guest in my talk show, what made you say yes? How do you feel now, and would you recommend it to other people?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, I recently joined that page on Facebook. Um, and most of the stuff that comes up are not really, I don't know, they're not really opportunities that I'm interested in. And honestly, with the interviews, like I've backed off on a lot of interviews because for a while I was doing so many of them. I'm like, oh my God, you people must be so tired of listening to me talk. I can't do this anymore. And it's just, they're time invested, right? But there was something about the way you presented it that I was like, this is going to be cool and different, and it's going to be more collaborative. And those are the interviews that I've been doing lately are more collaborative ones. Um, because it's like I don't want it to be like the me show. I
Yeah.
like the conversational stuff and I like talking about just not necessarily more personal, well, personal details, not like personal details, but just, yeah, because I'm obviously there's more to me than just that Violet character in Friday the 13th, and there's more to you than just as this interviewer, right? So, um, yeah, I think that's what perked my interest, and I knew I had some free time coming up. So I was like, yeah, go for it. And you weren't coming at me as a horror fan. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be different.
No, that's how, if I see someone who I like I'm a big wrestling fan, I would say, hey, my name is Keith Andrew. I'm also known as a talk show host with a learning disability. Nice to meet you. I would like to work with you. Now, I'm not saying I'm using my disability as an advantage. Maybe I am because everyone has a gimmick. And if you have a normal show, you expect, well, a lot of people say, oh, you got to pay me for your time. You're not traveling. You're just sitting there talking. And for me, it's kind of like you're making a new friend, you're supporting people with learning disabilities, and it's good PR. You're helping me, and it looks good for you because now you can say you work with people with disabilities, regardless if you corrected me. But that's fine. But just may try to make you laugh. But it's just the fact of that you're making a new friend, you're supporting people with learning disabilities. I know I paid one person, and I said, never again will I ever pay this person because he said it was a good interview, there was nothing wrong with it. But he said, I don't want it because it was good quality. Because when I started, what you see on the phone was the reflection, and this was 2013, 2014. There was no Skype recording, as far as I know back then. So he said, wait, you gotta take it down. And I said to him, fine, I take the interview down, but you gotta give me my $50 back. And he said, no. It's like, well, I'm not taking it down then. That's why I don't interview people if I have to pay you. Or if you don't sign the permission form. If you
Right.
don't want to sign the permission form, then I will still interview you, but you will do a double interview. But if you're
Okay.
just gonna, throw it up in the air and make a big deal out of it, I don't have the time or patience. That's like when I approached you, you were really nice about it. Like, yes, you have a learning disability. I support people with disabilities. You were really nice, and you seem, and I am legit. But there's other people that pretend to be, something. I don't sell my interviews for money. There's other people that do their podcasts and then they try to sell it for money. I
Right.
find that to be kind of shitty. But I mean, okay, it's good you want to start a career, but it has to be mutual. If I become famous and I get a real show, I want to buy you once and I want to have you on the show. And that's for everyone who I ever interviewed. Because by you being here, you're helping me, and by you being on the show, I'm helping you. Because
Yeah, it's
it's a
collaborative.
good thing. It isn't just I'm gonna take advantage of everything and the hell is everyone else. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Well, that's what I was saying. I mean, the collaborative process is the best. That's my favorite thing to do, whether it's in through my photography or through acting. Um, or I'm working on a project with a guy in Utah. We're developing a script. Um, it's exciting to do the collaborative stuff because it feeds on itself, right? So I totally appreciate you inviting me out here. And of course, when you posted that, I had to look you up and just make sure you were legit. Because I mean, there's a lot of people on that page of all different levels and experience. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been around for a long time. So I go cautiously into all of this, but I was like, yeah, this sounds like a great opportunity and it'll be fun. And I got some time. Why not?
Absolutely. I do have a couple questions for you off the air. But anyone who's watching this, our goal is to get 500 and more views. Leave a comment. We're definitely going to do a part two. Leave suggestions about what we should talk about in the next episode. If I do any of our projects, I would love to have you part of it. But the biggest thing, if you're watching, you definitely have to leave a comment. What you liked, what you did not like, what we can talk about next time, and just supporting people with disabilities. But wrapping up, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest, and I'm looking forward to part two down the road. So until we meet again, catch you later.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Keith. Appreciate it.
Anytime, and have a good night.